Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I'm 23 and I work at a 24/7 bar in my town that's known for our pizza and drinks. We don't really have any other food options, but people seem to enjoy it either way. I've never really understood why the owners decided they wanted us to deliver pizzas. It's a lot of hassle for probably not all that much extra money. But since we didn't really get that many delivery orders anyway, I was always the only driver. My shift was usually 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. On this night, I walked into the place being pretty crowded. There were several large groups, and with deliveries being slow, I was helping out with waiting tables. In the meantime, there were a few deliveries still, though I made maybe one an hour. At 3 a.m. there was another regular delivery for me to drop off. I grabbed a single pizza and got in my car. The address was 15 minutes away, so I typed it into Google Maps and started driving. Everything up until this point was completely normal. This was just like any other delivery, and honestly, I was quite happy to get out of that crowded bar and out onto the quiet roads while driving. I was caught completely off guard when my Google Maps just suddenly said I'd arrived at my destination. I wasn't even in a neighborhood. I pulled over on the curb and tried to figure out where I'd gone wrong, double-checking everything. This was the address that was on the order. Only the address was for the entrance to a forest preserve or a park or something like that. There weren't even any houses nearby that it could have been mixed up with. I called the customer's number. It rang for less than a second before they picked up. "Hey, this is John. I'm just trying to deliver your pizza, but I think you've given us the wrong address." There was a strangely long pause as I could hear the man breathing into the phone. He began to describe my car and said to look to my left. I did as he said, and literally saw nothing but a pitch-black forest. Then I saw something begin to move. It appeared to be the man on the phone. He was waving his arms in the air to get my attention. He was standing way off in the forest beyond the road. I don't know why he didn't just come onto the side of the road where it was easier to see, or even why he'd ordered it here to begin with. I got out and started walking over. It was hard not to notice how eerily quiet it was outside next to this forest preserve. There were no cars anywhere, and no other people either. I found it really odd too that as I walked up to the guy, he didn't even move to meet me halfway. He just stood there and watched me walk across the street and up to the grass just before the edge of the forest where he was at. I stopped halfway through the grass area, realizing that this was way too weird. I waved for him to come over and grab the pizza and pay for it. The guy hesitated, and instead of walking up to me, he looked behind me and on either side, pretty obviously looking for any bystanders. My nerves were really high at this point, which made it hard to think clearly. If my mind was clear, I definitely would have just taken off from my car and left. Before I could come to my senses though, the man started approaching me. He was moving really fast and didn't slow down, even as he got closer. I stumbled back, but it was too late. The man grabbed my upper arm and started pulling me back toward the forest. He was clearly trying to be quiet, not yelling or saying anything, instead putting all his efforts into trying to drag me. We struggled back and forth for several seconds before I realized I couldn't break free. I started punching wildly. It only took a few clean shots to his face before he let me go, and by then, we were only a few feet from the forest. I took off running, looking only back to check if he was following. I saw him get up and run off into the forest. To my horror, two other guys came out from behind the trees. I got in my car and drove straight to the police station that was on the other side of the block. Obviously, the guys had completely run off by then. I actually went back to work after that, explaining what happened to my boss and asking if he had any info on the guy's order. All he had was a phone number, which had already been disconnected. The first name was most likely fake as well. After that, he sent me home early with a free slice of pizza. I didn't think that was exactly a fair trade, but I wasn't going to complain. If I'd been dumb enough to walk up to the forest that night, I probably would have been instantly attacked by all three men with no witnesses anywhere around. Luckily, my hesitance to approach him made it an easier fight to escape, but it very quickly could have turned into something far worse. This happened back in the year 1996. I was 13, and one night I was at home with my older sister, who was 16 at the time. Our parents were gone for the night, so they gave us some money to order a pizza. After our parents left, I went into my room to play some video games. My sister was in her bedroom. When I got hungry, I left my room and told my sister that I really wanted some pizza. We ordered, and I'm not sure exactly what time it was. All I know is that it was dark out. While we waited for the pizza, we hung out together in the living room. I remember that the pizza guy got there and rang the doorbell. My sister went over and answered. She paid the pizza guy and brought the pizza into the kitchen. I was still in the living room watching TV, but I was about to go into the kitchen. As I got up, I heard somebody suddenly trying to open the front door to our home. I stopped where I was and listened in. They tried opening the door again. I wasn't sure if it was the pizza guy or what. I went over to the front window and looked out of it. I was just on time to barely see somebody moving away. They went out of sight within just a second, though, and I didn't really get a good look at them. It was just enough to know that there was somebody out there, and that person had gone to the side, toward the driveway. It also led toward the side of our house, though. I kept watching, but I didn't see the person return. I figured they must have left. I went into the kitchen and told my sister about that strange occurrence. We looked out of all the windows, but we didn't see anything suspicious. We figured the guy must have left. We went into the living room and were having the pizza and watching some TV. Not long into this, though, there was a loud knock at the front door. We carefully went over to a front window and looked outside. When we did, we saw there was a man standing out front on the front step. It was not the pizza delivery guy from earlier, and neither of us recognized the man. We figured it must have been the same guy who had just tried entering the house earlier. We didn't know what we should do. I wanted to call our parents, but they didn't have cell phones at the time. We stayed in the living room and heard the man knock once more. He stopped, and things were very quiet for a short time. We looked out again and the guy seemed to be gone. I couldn't find him anywhere. Just moments later, we heard somebody trying to open the back door to the house. Whoever this guy was, he seemed very determined to get into our home for whatever reason. My sister said she was calling the police and went over to the home phone. I stayed put in the living room and hoped the man would not try to break in while my sister was on the phone with the police. I didn't hear anything more. After she was told the police were on their way, we looked out of a few more windows. We couldn't find the guy in the backyard or the front yard. 10 minutes later, the police got there. We figured that the guy must have left. I remember just hoping that he wouldn't return after the police had gone away. My sister talked to the police and told them what happened. I also talked to them a little bit too and gave my account of the events. They said they would take a full look around our property. Surprisingly, the police actually did find the man hiding behind a tree in our backyard, the very same guy. I really couldn't believe that he was still there. The police arrested the man for trespassing. Neither me nor my sister had any idea who he was. I'm just really glad they actually found him. One October night many years ago, when we were both young adults, my friend Mike and I were driving back after a very fun road trip. We ended up checking into a hotel later in the evening, as we weren't going to make it all the way home and didn't want to drive throughout the whole night. Mike and I decided to unwind in the hot tub at the hotel because there wasn't anything to do in the small town we were staying in. We had been on the road pretty much all day, and the warmth of the hot tub was exactly what we needed. After checking in at the front desk, we changed into our swimsuits and headed down to the outdoor pool area. The pool itself was closed for maintenance, I think some sort of chemical treatment. Maybe. The hot tub was open, though. The night was clear and the stars were visible, but the area around the hot tub was poorly lit, casting long shadows over everything. Mike and I settled into the tub for a nice relax. We needed to unwind before bed. We talked about our day, our plans for the next day, and just caught up on life, really. After a while, the conversation drifted to more trivial things such as our old high school days, funny incidents, and random stuff like that. As we talked, we noticed a figure at the edge of the pool area. At first, we thought it was someone from another room, also coming out for a late-night dip. As time passed, though, the figure made no attempt to move. It was just a man standing there and looking at us. I whispered to Mike, asking if he saw this weird stuff going on. I motioned toward the guy near the edge of the pool. Mike squinted through the dim lighting and responded that he could indeed see him. He asked me what he was doing, but I couldn't make out much. The figure was tall and wearing dark clothing. I could see the silhouette clearly, but the man's face was obscured by the darkness. I wasn't sure if the figure was just deciding whether he wanted to swim in the pool, even though it was closed, or something else. We continued our conversation, trying to ignore the mysterious stranger, but it was hard not to feel uneasy. The man didn't move at all. He just stood there as though he was waiting for something. Finally, Mike decided to call out and ask the man what he was waiting for. He told him the pool was closed and there was no reason to stand around there. There was no response from the man. He didn't even flinch. His presence was making everything feel tense. Mike glanced at me, indicating that maybe we should go inside for the night. I nodded in agreement, and we started to get out of the hot tub. Just then, the man turned and walked away. He moved very deliberately slow. It was so odd. He didn't appear to be in any hurry at all. We watched him disappear into the dark and didn't speak until he was out of sight. We went to our room and locked the door behind us, making sure the chain was secure. We joked about it, of course, trying to laugh off the strange encounter, but neither of us could shake this feeling of unease lingering over us. We turned off the lights and went to bed, but neither of us could sleep very well. In the morning, we were eager to leave. We packed up our things, and after turning in our keys at the front desk, we were on our way. A few days later, Mike showed me an article in the paper. A man had apparently been found dead in that area near the hotel. It was ruled an accident, but the details were chilling. He had been living in the woods nearby and frequently came to the hot tub of the hotel. His body was found floating in the pool that was closed off for maintenance. We never saw the face of the man who was at the pool with us that night, so we couldn't determine if it was the same guy who was pictured in the paper. Regardless, the man who was watching us that night by the pool had either been killed or killed someone, or perhaps was something else entirely. When I was about 12 years old, I went to the local school and was a very shy kid, but I had several friends. There was one kid at my school named Eric. We had some mutual friends and knew who each other were, but we weren't close. We never really hung out. I didn't know much about him, though we had a class together and sat sort of near each other, so I'd often hear him talking with others. Sometimes, when I was chatting with my friends, Eric would stop by and join in for a bit. One day, one of my friends mentioned that he had been invited to Eric's birthday party that weekend. To my surprise, the next day, Eric invited me too. He told me the address and time and said to bring a present. He even wrote the info down on a sticky note and handed it to me. I felt really good about being invited. As a shy kid, I didn't get invited to many birthday parties. Eric wasn't exactly cool or popular, but he definitely had more friends than I did, and I thought fairly well of him. I hadn't realized he considered me a friend. When Friday came, I was nervous but excited. My mom and I had gone out the day before to buy Eric a nice present. During school that day, one of my friends who was also invited told me he couldn't go, he had to attend his sister's recital or something. That made me a lot more anxious, since I wouldn't know anyone else there very well. That night, my mom drove me to Eric's house. It was supposed to be a sleepover, and she said she'd pick me up the next morning. I was dropped off right on time and walked up to the house. I knocked on the door, and after a moment, Eric opened it. There was another kid standing with him that I didn't recognize. Eric invited me in. I could hear voices and laughter from another room, probably where the other guests were. Eric led me to the kitchen at the back of the house. Another unfamiliar kid came in from somewhere else. Now it was just me, Eric, and two boys I didn't know. Everyone else seemed to be in another room. Eric pointed to a table with a pile of gifts and told me to leave mine there. I did. Then he told me to follow him. I assumed we were going to join the others, but instead he led me to the back door. He told me to go outside. I didn't understand why, but I did as he said. The moment I stepped out, he slammed the door shut behind me and started laughing. His friends laughed too. I thought it was a joke at first and turned to go back inside, expecting him to let me in. But I heard the click of the lock, then his voice saying something like, "Later, loser." He covered the window and walked away. I stood there for about 5 minutes, still unsure if it was a prank. But it quickly became clear it wasn't. I had been locked out on purpose. I felt humiliated. I didn't want to knock and try to come back in, I just wanted to go home. I didn't have a cell phone back then, and my mom wouldn't be back until the next morning. Eventually, I walked back out to the street and down the block. I ended up knocking on a random stranger's door. Luckily, they answered, and I asked if I could use their phone. I called my mom, and she came to pick me up. When we got home, she looked up Eric's mom's phone number and called her. Eric's mom said she had no idea I was even invited. The next day, she brought Eric to our house and made him apologize in person. He also gave the present back. But I didn't feel any better, I'd been humiliated. After that, I never talked to Eric again. I saw him around school the next year or two, but thankfully, we didn't end up at the same high school. My children, male, 14, female, 11, and female, 5, and I were returning to my car after a very successful cinema trip. We were all in high spirits. The older two were walking on either side of me, and my 5-year-old was holding my hand. It was a relatively late showing, so we got to the car park around 19:30, not too late in the UK at the height of summer. It was a boiling hot day, which is important to remember. It was a typical multi-story car park in the city center of a smallish city. A relatively open space with decent lighting. There were only 2 exits on that side, the one we walked through, and another further down. We were parked about 50 spaces in, so it was quite a walk. As we entered, I immediately felt eyes on me. You know that uncomfortable feeling of being watched without knowing where it's coming from? I did a quick scan and saw a man dressed head to toe in very heavy clothing. He wore trousers and a beanie hat that obscured most of his face. He was walking directly toward me with very strong eye contact. This car park had a fair few homeless people hanging around because it was cool and sheltered. Seeing him in full cold weather gear, I assumed he might be homeless. Given his speed and direction, I figured he was just heading out of the car park and over the bridge toward the town center. But as we proceeded to our car, I noticed he hadn't exited the car park. Instead, he took a sudden, sharp right turn and began walking parallel to us. His pace slowed to match my youngest child's small steps. His body angled away from us, but his head was turned just enough that I could clearly see his left eye watching us. My inner warning system went haywire. I immediately told my kids to stay close to me. By now, my son had also noticed the man and gave me a look as if to ask, "Are you seeing this too?" We still had a bit of a way to go, and annoyingly, I'd used my husband's car, which is a pain for car seat access and makes an obnoxiously loud beeping sound when you unlock it. It was parked alone in the last row. Just past it was a ramp to another level. The car wasn't very family-friendly looking, and a minivan was parked next to us. That ended up working to our advantage. I could tell the man had assumed the minivan was ours. He was heading toward it. As he circled behind it, I kept my eyes locked on him. I told the older two that as soon as we got to the car, they were to get in quickly and shut the doors, no panicking. My middle child had also noticed the man's behavior and kept looking to me for reassurance. I cannot stress this enough, the man looked like a predator circling his prey. The way the car park was laid out, unless he was parked there himself, which he clearly wasn't, there was absolutely no reason to be walking in that direction. It was a dead-end wall with nothing but empty spaces. As we reached the car, the man was slightly ahead of us. I unlocked it, cue the loud beeping, and he made full eye contact with me. As soon as he rounded the bend, he started making a beeline straight for us. I got the kids in as fast as I could, and they did an amazing job following my instructions. Within 5 seconds, we were all inside. I locked the doors. If I'd taken any longer, I believe he would have pounced. But the moment he heard the door locks click, he took a sharp left and started running away, back in the direction he'd originally come from. As I pulled out, he stopped and watched us the entire time, then turned again and went back to the first exit where I'd initially seen him. Naturally, this prompted a conversation with the kids about safety, opportunists, trusting your instincts, and how proud I was of them for staying calm and listening. I believe it was likely just a nefarious man who saw a small woman outnumbered by children as an easy target, possibly for mugging or robbery, and was thankfully very bad at executing his plan. I should point out, this wasn't the first time I've had a strange experience in that nearly empty car park. For anyone thinking, you're just paranoid, I've had people try to open my passenger door in broad daylight while I was sitting in my car reading a book. In this case, a man crossed the entire car park and came straight at me. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.